and now we play the waiting game. Oh my goodness. So let me just say, first things first, I've been permanently suspended on X. I applied an appeal, but the reason for my suspension is that I defended Karmelo Anthony. I kid you not. I essentially said what I said here is that, hey, don't put hands on people. That's what people need to teach your kids. And maybe this whole scenario would have been avoided. X flagged that as violent speech, mind you. Violent speech. They told me to remove the post. I removed the post. Then they still suspend my account. I've applied for appeal, but y'all know how that goes. So we'll see what happens. I'm creating a new account. That being said, when it comes to this case, this case has been just I don't know, overwhelmed and flooded with misinformation. And I mean, it's typical of any case when there's a black person, a white person in here. We saw this with Ahmaud Arbery, if you all remember, when they were saying, oh, he had a hammer in his pocket and everything, and he was robbing the place and stuff like that. But when it comes to this case, I feel that this is the prosecution's case to lose.
Damn.
And what I mean by that is that I haven't come across any information or any evidence or any testimony that really is the nail in the coffin. By that same statement, I think the prosecution, they may not have much of the facts, but they got the sizzle. And from what I've been hearing, because I've listened to other people who've gone to the cases, there are a lot of black women who are following this case, and many of them are just saying, hey, they're making emotional arguments here. They're putting on a show for the jury. There was one scenario when they were asking, I believe, the autopsy specialist, whatnot, but the prosecution was like, hey, in victim scenarios, don't they usually have their hands up like this when there's a weapon? And the person was like, yeah, that's usually what happens. And was Austin, did he have his hands up like that? He's like, no, that did not, from my understanding, did not have his hands up in that position. And he turns to the jury and is like, that's because he never saw it coming.
Damn.
And that's powerful, right? That may not be truthful, of course, but that's powerful. That's emotional manipulation. That is what's going on. So from what I've heard of the defense, of the prosecution has a bunch of sizzle. They have no stake, right? They have no facts. When you look at the witnesses that are coming on, all of them are being untruthful, okay? I would go so far as to say lying. And the reason why I'm saying that, it's not because I'm just pulling it out, out my butt. It's because there was one point in time where it was this friend of Karmelo, and I believe his name was Eddie, and this kid was trying to act like he didn't know Karmelo. It was very much like how they denied knowing Jesus. I don't know the man. That's what he was doing, right? He was saying, I don't really know Karmelo like that. Like we hang out sometimes. And the defense was like, you gonna act like you don't know this kid? Y'all didn't have like a double date at one time? Y'all weren't friends before this event? Y'all didn't hang out, prior to this? Y'all weren't, buddies like that? And this kid was like, nah, not really. The defense shows him a picture of them hanging out, right? Shows him a picture of, them being buddies. And the kid is like, oh, okay, now, yeah, I think I remember. Yeah. So it's clear that these witnesses are lying. They're all saying that, I had multiple witnesses say that, oh, yeah, it was Karmelo who tried to initiate the fight. It was Karmelo who said, I forgot. It was something so ludicrous. And he was like, y'all are, P words and everything. Y'all gonna do anything. I'm not moving, F you and all this, right? And it's like, let me get this straight. Now, albeit this is a witness. Do I think it's a credible witness? No, because it doesn't make any sense, and it's not coherent with other people and what they have said. But mind you, this is what the prosecution witnesses have been saying. So after you hear this so many times, it's an all-white jury. If you don't think the all-white jury in Texas is going to be racially prejudiced, I don't know what to tell you. You're a better person than I am in the faith of humanity.
Come on now, dog.
So when they hear someone fit the typical black, the black criminal narrative. Oh, he was aggressive. He was hostile. Oh, he said, F you, he's not doing anything. Oh, he was intransigent. Oh, that fits the bill. Now, the reason why I say that that's foolishness, and it's very difficult for anyone with an IQ above room temperature to believe, is because Karmelo is 5'8", right? Usually, right, typically 5'8" people, all right, who are track stars do not pick fights with 6'1", 200 plus linebackers. All right. That's not what happens? So to try and act like Carmelo's the one that instigated the fight, that Carmelo's the one that wanted to get into this brawl, is ludicrous. It's nonsensical. In addition to that, it contradicts their testimony, because many of the kids at the time, and the defense even brought this up, was like, hey, you said that it was a Metcalf who was the aggressor. You said that it was Metcalf who was going to be intimidating. And every single time, the defense attorney had to remind them of their sworn statements that they had relayed to police at the time. So what they are saying on trial, on the stand, is night and day from what they had testified to previously, to what they had sworn to officers, law enforcement, previously. Now, that being said, I get it, all right? What you have to take into account, these are all kids, bruh. They all have to go back to school. With who? The brother, right? Of the slain football player. That's who they have to go back to school with, right? So obviously, when it comes to politics in schools, you obviously don't want to be the person who gets the alleged, murderer off, right? You don't want to be labeled as that kid going back to school with all these kids that you're all buddy with. That's what you have to understand. So I get that dynamic of them lying on the stand and contradicting their statements at the time. In addition to that, you had one of the witnesses' defense come up and it's like, hey, Austin Metcalf said, I'm going to beat your ASS if you don't move, something to that effect. So we can clearly see that Metcalf was the aggressor. Metcalf traveled 5 benches to go to Karmelo Anthony. That's what he did. He was clearly the aggressor. Now, when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to the knife and everything, I mean, that's where I think, in my opinion, based off of other people's accounts, I think that's where the defense is losing it, because the prosecution is pulling the heartstrings, right? They're like, hey, we need the family to leave, when they show pictures of like the heart and, the wounds and everything. When they're playing, the video, you're having the family crying, and obviously a juror, unless you're cold-hearted, right? A juror seeing a family cry and, the mother mourning their son and everything, obviously that is pulling on their heartstrings. So the emotional appeal of this story, I think, outweighs the prosecution's actual evidence, actual facts on the matter to prove, that Karmelo did this and he intended to absolutely, vanquish, Metcalf. And I just haven't come across any testimony or the defense trying to say that, hey, this was, it wasn't intentional to the chest, right? Could this have been just a spur of the moment? I think they brought this up when it came to the knife and how it wasn't fully open and how it wasn't easy to open.
So the headline, I think, of when we talk about the weapon in this case, was the fact that it was a folding knife that was not completely folded. It was maybe at a 45-degree angle, and it's got a locking mechanism, and they took the jury through what that means. And I think what I took away from that was that Karmelo Anthony probably didn't have this weapon in position to utilize it during this confrontation, meaning that it was more emotional, meaning he was potentially fumbling for it. He had a cut on his finger.
It wasn't locked.
It wasn't locked. So I felt like that really supported maybe self-defense, maybe manslaughter.
So that means to go that it was more of a panic as opposed to like, let's rumble, let's get this on. So I don't know if the defense's arguments were convincing enough to overlook or to, I guess, supersede the emotional, baggage that the prosecution came with. I don't know, because you know how people are. You hear cries, you hear tears and everything. Now, that being said, they also showed Karmelo Anthony, who was tearful, who was remorseful, and who was crying. He's like, I told him not to do that. So it also goes to show that, hey, he wasn't intentionally trying to yeet this kid. That's not what he was trying to do. He was trying to defend himself. Now, whether or not the jury hears that, whether or not the jury hearing a black boy cry or be remorseful, whether or not that falls onto their hearts, unlikely. Okay, I'm not even going to say I don't know. I'm going to say it's unlikely. This is an all-white jury. If it had maybe been one black person or one brown person, they can maybe say, well, see, it was him. It was him. I didn't do it. But this is an all-white jury. And this all-white jury lives in this area. They're going to have to face the other white people in that area, okay? And how white people, especially racist white people, treat who they believe are race traitors, okay? They do not treat them very favorably. So these white people on this jury, they'll have to leave the country. They'll have to at least leave the state, leave the city. They'll probably have to leave the state because word travels pretty fast. You have to understand the dynamics here. You have kids who have to go back to school with Metcalf. You have a jury who has to go back home, all right, around other racist white people. It's not in Karmelo's favor, in my opinion. I think the facts are in Karmelo's favor, but the emotional, pleas, the emotional arguments, it's just, I think it may be too powerful to beat. But I don't know. He may be acquitted. There may be one righteous white person on the jury who's like, nah, I think it was self-defense. Karmelo's 5'8". This guy's a linebacker. He's 200 pounds. He pushed him because they go and say that it was more of I forgot the word, the linebacker push, whatever.
The push. We have demonstrations happening on the open, inside the courtroom, right in the middle. Let's talk about those demonstrations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the more, I'm not sure that the prosecution expected this because they did have one of the witnesses said it wasn't just a push, it was, he lifted him up in like a linebacker drill type, like when you see a linebacker, hit the dummies. And so, that's what he said.
So it wasn't a light shove. And that's why it's just, it gets tiring just hearing, the prosecution witnesses just lie like this. Just lie. Constantly contradicting their statements, their sworn statements that they gave to law enforcement. And then when the defense brings on their witnesses, the witnesses are saying, well, no, I think it was more of a shove. I saw two hands and everything. So it's whether or not the jury can see that the witnesses are lying or being untruthful or trying to cover for Metcalf, I don't know. I don't see Karmelo beating this case just simply due to the facts that I laid out. Because the facts are all lining up that this was very much self-defense. But we will see. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Whether or not you believe, oh, you're just doing this because he's black, Lucas. You're just defending him because he's black. Or because there's always those people out there, the low IQ white ignorance. It's always projection. Remember that. Everything they believe you're guilty of, they're guilty of, okay? Every accusation is nothing more than confession. The only reason they're pretending to defend Metcalf is because he's a white kid. That's it, okay? And you got the mean, bad, bully, black kid, and that's their Neanderthal mindset. Black person bad, white person good. That's what they do. Or if you can't believe, I hope he gets acquitted, right? This seems to be a clear case of self-defense. Unfortunately, the kid is gone, but that is the lesson that maybe should be learned from other kids out there that, hey, keep your hands to yourself, number one. And number two, get an adult. As simple as that. Get an adult. There's no reason for you to try and act like you the big man on campus, right? There's no reason for you to try and act like you Superman when you're not, all right? You're not bulletproof and you're clearly not knife-proof, okay? So engage in that high IQ that, your racist uncle believes you have and act on it. Don't show low impulse control. Be better. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, if you happen to disagree, you know where to find me. Friday and Saturday, disagreement day. There'll be a number on screen. You call in and we duke it out. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment. Let me know what you guys think about the case. Whether or not he's going to be found, not guilty or guilty. And make sure to subscribe. And all that fun stuff. Till next time, guys, be amazing.